Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. You know when you have one of those nights where you just think, oh, I don't fancy watching the TV, so I thought I'd come along and create another video. I've actually got the fan on in the background, so I do apologise if you can hear a little bit of a whirring sound. It's a little bit warm here, so I've just had to put the fan on, so I do apologise for that. I need to keep myself cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a piece of Pink Frog smooth card, and it is 6 inches square. And you know I'm going to question myself because I do every single time. Yes, it's 6 inches square and it's Pink Frog smooth card, and I've got a card blank 7 inches square, and I'm doing a top folding card. So that's 7 inches square, this is 6 inches square. And what I treated myself to some Ecoline inks. You know I love to use the Ecoline pens, and I thought I'll have a go with some of the inks. Now I was speaking to a friend recently and we were talking about new products, etc., and I was saying I don't like to buy new products sort of unless I know I'm going to use them. So I like to make sure I'm going to use them, and if I recommend products to you, or I say, you know, that I love the products, I like to use them quite a few times so you can see how versatile they are. But the reason I've bought these Ecoline inks is because I've got the pens, and I thought it'd be quite nice to just have the concentrated inks that I can just drip onto the card as well. Right, so let's grab my distress spritzer, or whichever spritzer bottle you've got, absolutely fine, and I'm just going to spritz some water on there. And if you want to stop it moving, you can spritz it on the reverse as well. So this is Ecoline 640 and it's bluish green. I think that's what it said. I had to get my magnifying glass on it, and this one is green. So this one is 640 and this one is 600, and I've not opened the bottles yet. I'm literally doing it. This is the first time I've opened the bottles, so I'm going to just tip off the excess, and I'm just going to add a little, look at that, just a little drip of colour. I knew I was going to like them if they were quite fluid, because I thought the colours are usually really nice in the Ecolines, so I thought it'd be fun just to try. Of course, I haven't got the lid open on that one, but I'm actually, as you can see, I'm sort of tipping off the excess before I literally go in to the card, and I'm doing one drop there, a drop here, and if it's not moving enough for you, then you can just spritz it again with water just so it moves, just so we can create a nice simple background. Just allow that on there. So a nice simple background. So I've literally just kept the concentration of water just in this area. Everything's blowing everywhere, obviously, because of the fan. The fan doesn't help either if you're trying to not get things to move too much. Let's get some kitchen roll. And I just love these colours because I'm going to create something seasonal. And what I'm going to do is just dab that up. What I like about these is because they move so quickly for a small amount of ink. What you could do is you could add salt into that and you'd get a lovely background as well. So if there's an area that, so for instance, I don't want it to move too much down here, and say I don't want it too green here, you can literally just dab the colour up. If you don't want to do that, you can place another card on the top and take a second generation print. I'm just going to leave that to do its thing just for a short while. Just let it do its thing. Let's move this. No, we need the tape measure. So the card was 6 by 6. So what I've done is I've excuse me, is I've cut a piece of copier paper exactly the same size as the card. So the copier paper is also 6 by 6. And then what I've done is I've drawn a triangle on the paper. So literally all as I did was, it was 6 by 6. So I haven't got any other tape measure that's in inches, and I'm an inch girl, unfortunately. So what I did was I found the center point, and then I went out to that way and out to that way and drew a line. And then I drew a dot 3 inches from the center upwards, and then just joined the lines together. Now, if you don't want it too perfect, if you don't want to do any measuring, I must admit I'm not a big measure person, but if you don't want to measure, then you can just cut a triangle freehand. It's entirely up to you. So what I'm going to do is just pierce the paper and just cut this out. It doesn't matter to me, you know, about as in straight edges or straight cutting, just as long as I've got a reasonable triangular shape. If you don't want to do that, you could use one of my stamp sets. There's plenty of triangles on there that you can get a triangle from, a bit like the geometric butterflies, or the stag has got a triangle on, and you could use the stag stamp set, just stamp the triangle and use that. I can show you that just a second. Just cut that out. There we go. So I've got an aperture. You also, where are we? You could use the triangle if you wanted a smaller triangle, the one on my stag. Just stamp that and then just cut the inside out, so you could use that as well. It's nice and easy to cut yourself a triangular-ish shape out. It doesn't have to be perfect. So let's just move that to one side, and let's just grab my heat tool. Now all the faffing and shuffling is because my husband used my heat tool, not for making a card or anything, for removing stickers off his car. So he's not put it back right. It just gets chucked in the cupboard. Nothing gets folded, which is a bit of a pain. But as you can see, what I love about these Ecoline fluid inks is that you could put them in a pen if you wish, and you can draw with them, or like me, you can create really free backgrounds, which I absolutely love. So let's just give that a dry. Now everything will obviously, if you let it dry naturally, the intensity of colour is going to be a lot better. What I'm doing now is I'm forcing the colour down into the card, so you remove some of that intensity in a way. So it is always better if you can dry something naturally. And if you dry it naturally, you'll get some of those darker areas if you want them. But I just love nice, simple background. But they're beautifully fluid as well, which I really love. Let's just turn that over, just so it dries a little bit flat. And again, you know, you need to make sure it's dry when you've used quite a bit of moisture like I have. You don't need to move your heat tool like I'm doing. That's just a habit that I've got into over the years, like you do. I just can't keep it still. And then I'm just going to remind that card where it should be going. There we go. So we've got a lovely, beautiful background. So, let me just... Of course, the one that I want probably won't be there. We can use that, can't we? What I'm going to do is if I just take a scrap of card, if you're ever going to test a colour, make sure that you test it on the same card that you're actually using. So let's just look at this Salty Ocean. So this is Salty Ocean. Let's have a look at the other one that I've got down here somewhere. course it will be the last one that I've got in the pile, of course it will. Having the fan blowing has its disadvantages. This is Mermaid Lagoon. Now for me, if you put them next to each other, the Salty Ocean is not quite the right colour, because if you put it on the same card, it works quite well. You can work it. Right, let's have a look at a few more colours. And obviously grab your colours before you start your project, which is usually a good idea. Especially when you've got hundreds of colours. Let's just have a look at some of these different colours. Start off all in order, but they don't stay like that. Peacock feathers. I normally put all the blues together, all the greens together, but it doesn't stay like that. So that's Mermaid Lagoon. Let's have a look at peacock feathers. So peacock feathers, evergreen bow. See, that's very green, so we know that we don't, well, it's obvious in the wording really. So I do like the Mermaid Lagoon and the peacock feathers. So we can now move that out the way. And what I'm going to do is, the reason I made this 6 by 6 to coordinate with this 6 by 6 is that I can place it on the top and it lines up, so I can see exactly where I'm putting the triangle. So then I can place a piece of low tack tape just to hold that in place, and then a piece of low tack tape to hold the bottom in place. There we go. Let's turn that fan up a little bit, only because it's irritating me blowing everything everywhere, and I'll just hold it in place down the side as well. There we go. So I'm just holding it in place, and because I've done the same measurement on the square piece of card, it means I know exactly where I'm putting the piece. So it works quite nicely. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take, which you can't see, the Mermaid Lagoon. I'm going to take a brush and I'm just going to make sure that I prime the blending tool and make sure there's plenty of ink on there. If you don't want to add too much, you can dab off the excess on your paper, and all you're going to do is we want to make sure that we can see that there's a triangular shape in there. So we're just going to add a little bit of that ink, which you're not going to see much of through the camera at the moment, but it's there. So I always start off the paper first and then come in to the edges. That way I get a lovely blended look. And obviously, because I've got that background that's in the blues and the greens, it's very difficult to see what I'm blending, but that's nothing to worry about. So just blending a bit of that colour. So that was Mermaid Lagoon. Let's just grab the paper and just take that excess colour off. I'm then going to take the peacock feathers and again just add plenty onto my ink blending tool. And I sort of spend a little bit of time blending that ink over the area. I don't rush the process. And the good thing about our self-made aperture, if we haven't got quite enough ink on, well, we can go back. We can go back and add more whenever we want. There we go. And just before you put your brush away, you can remove the excess ink so that you don't have to remember when you come back to using it. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use my Temporal stamp set 733. And I'm going to add some of the imagery into the background of my triangular piece. I think must have the window slightly open. So I'm just going to add a little bit of detail. So I'm going to take my black Nocturne ink. Let's just take that ink. And I'm just inking up the clocks mainly. I don't mind if I get one of the little butterflies, that's absolutely fine. But what I'm trying to do, let me just lift this stamp up, is I don't really, let me just turn it round, want this area here, the edge of the butterfly. What you could do is you could use some low tack tape just to mask off that area, or a piece of paper and then ink, and then you've masked that area off. There we go. So I'll just look under the light and you can see what areas you've inked. And then what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of that stamped inked area into my triangle. Let's just give that a little bit of time. And if you hold onto the stamp and you just lift it slightly, you can see whether you're happy with the inking. So you can sort of see if you're happy with what you've got and see if you've missed a little bit of an area. So I've now got this stamped into my triangular area, and I'm going to add a little bit more stamping here. So what I'm going to do is try and bring this in so you can see. I'm going to ink up a little bit of the clock again. Just inking the clock area really this time. And because it's the same size as the card underneath, that means I'm also protecting that card underneath from me getting any stamping on the card. That's why I created that a little bit. Sorry, that's why I created the copier paper the same size as the card, because then the whole thing is masked off apart from this opening area. And you wouldn't use a piece of card to do this, because if you used a piece of card, there'd end up being, because of the thickness of the card, you'd get sort of a lip on there, and you don't want that. So you can see I'm just building that up now. So what I'm going to do now is just take, let's ink another little bit of this, let's ink another little bit of this clock. So I'm literally using the stamp totally different to how maybe I've used it in the past. Move that out the way because we haven't quite got enough room. And I don't have to worry again about the rest of the card because it's completely covered up. Just lift that slightly to make sure I've done it properly. And what you've got is you've got some of this background stamp on there, and it just looks beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So what I'm going to do now is, I think we'll just give that a little blot. Let's grab my copy paper. Now, if you're wondering why we're going to blot that, well, we've got that ink on there, haven't we? The Ecoline ink that we've used. So we've got that ink on there. So we're just giving it a blot because the card isn't as porous as it would be if the ink wasn't on there. So we're just giving that a little bit of blot. This is from a little bit of the low-tack tape. So I'm just blotting some of this, just to make sure that we don't go and smudge everything. But even the clock here, to look lovely. Right, so we can now remove this. Let's remove this one. We'll just remove this one on the side. Let's remove that. And we'll just remove this one on the bottom. She says. I don't have to worry about it ripping because that's the copy of paper that it's on top of. And what I can do is I can just lift this paper and just take a look at whether I'm happy with my inking. And I am. So I can just lift this like a little hinge and you can see it works beautifully. So now I can remove that and we can keep that for another card because I'm definitely going to be doing this again. So as you can see, we've got this and I just think that looks beautiful. So what I'm going to do then is grab a little scrap of card. It's funny because I keep reaching for scraps of card and then I actually lose them. Don't ask me how. It's like, how can you lose it in such a small room? You'd think it was near on impossible. So I'm just going to create a pot. And I always create the pot actually bigger than I actually need. Because it's easier to make it smaller, but you can't make it bigger. There we go. Just leave those there. So, and as it is, that one is quite a nice size. So that's lovely. It's quite a nice size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit, and you know, I've realised I haven't grabbed a stamp set that I needed, but you know I'm going to hunt for it anyway. So what I'm going to do is, let's have a look now. I want a little bit of that, so I want this side. So I'm just going to ink the right hand side of my clock. Which is going to take me forever now to pick up. And then I'm just going to add a little bit. I always ink more than I need because if I don't, I'll end up missing a bit. Not that it matters, you know, it's a little bit of card. There we go. Let's just wipe up that little bit of black with a dry wipe that does absolutely nothing. That have been lying on the desk for ages. Come on, Tracy, pick that up. Let's just give that a little bit of a wipe. And I'll just look for the stamp set that I need. There we go. It was just handy, so it wasn't too far to look. So again, I'm just going to give that a little bit of a blot. Now, on this one, I inked first, stamped afterwards. On this one, on the pot, I've stamped first and then I'm going to ink afterwards. But because I'm going to ink so lightly, it doesn't really matter. If you were inking quite heavily, say you'd stamped first and you were inking quite heavily afterwards, you're going to tone and dull down the ink, the Nocturne ink. You will tone that down and it will seem a bit more sort of cloudy, not as crisp. But because I'm just adding a touch of ink, it really doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. There we go. And I just love how sort of detailed that is. So our pot. So what I need now is a little bit of the green. So I'll bring in a bit of twisted citron. Let's make sure we use I've got a piece of cut and dry foam now. I just reach for anything I've got, to be honest. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the green, just so that the pot coordinates with our project. We don't want it to be too disjointed. So we're just going to add this here, like so. And I'm not going to add too much dimension to that. And if you wanted a flat card, you could just keep this completely flat, which works quite nicely. We'll just add the little pot here, like so. Just give that a little bit of time to grab hold. There we go, just so that you've got your pot on there. And I love it when you just create a project just because, and then you don't have to have this, but I treated myself to some pans, a sort of metallic. Have you seen the name? IUILE. Don't ask me to pronounce that. So I'm just going to bring this out, and it's a little bit, can you see it's shimmery? And I thought, what would be nice with that? If I just get a very tiny brush, and you can see I've treated myself to some little thin brushes, very fine ones. I don't buy anything too expensive. There's no point Tracy buying expensive brushes, but I do sometimes like quality inks. Now these aren't cheap. There's something like, you know, £15 little pan, but obviously you can imagine this is concentrated and it's going to last a long time, but this is a luxury. So what I'm going to say now is you can use your gel pens. So let's just spritz this because it's not going to do anything. You can use your gel pens. You know, you've got your little shiny gel pens. You can use those if you wish. I just wanted something a little bit different. Just need to really, you should let it sit just so that your work, you know, you give it time just to do its thing. And what I wanted to do was just add a little bit of shimmer to my design. And what I'm hoping I can do with these pans is I'm hoping I can start adding a little touch of shimmer to my florals. I'm always looking for ways to be a little bit different, just to add little tiny touches to my designs to make them appear different to the recipient, just so that they do appear different, and when they are held up and looked at, that they, you know, they look quality. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, this is a luxury, you know, to have. So you don't need this. Use your gel pens if you wish, but this is super concentrated, super concentrated. I'm hardly touching. Let me see if I can grab, there you go. I'm hardly touching that, and the shimmer is just wonderful. Now, I'm not a very sort of overly metallic kind of person, but this I class as classy metallic. For me, I just love it. And why am I not pulling the other one out? I've got one that's sort of a purpley blue. It's more purple, really. Just undo the pouch. Don't know why I'm trying to slide it out and keep it all neat. You know, just tear it, Tracy. That's easier said than done and all. Oh, good grief. There you go. Open. Come on. And you can spend 20 minutes watching a video of Tracy unwrapping a tiny little pan of a thing. There we go. There we go. I mean, look at the shimmer on that. Whoa. Just lovely. So, I mean, there's so much left in there, you know, it seems a shame not to use it. It's full, absolutely full of pigment. Right, so I want to use this one, so it would have been better if I'd have just placed a little bit of water on there. It's best if you spritz your water onto your pans and you let them do their thing for a few moments, you know, just let them sit with the water, and it just makes it a lot easier. But you can see, I don't know whether you can because of the light, the shimmer already on the brush. So what I'm going to do is just add a little. So the idea is that going forward, I'm going to be using these just to add touches of shimmer to my flowers, just so I can just look a little bit different now and then. Maybe use something different. I hardly have to touch these. You really don't need much at all. Let me just show you this. The shimmer is just lovely. So what I'm going to do now is pick up, let's rinse that. You would have some water near you so you can you're ready. I'm just going to add a few, let me just pick that up. That's it. A few little touches of the shimmer just to my project. And you can see that I'm going for subtle. I'm not overpowering it. And then we've got a little bit more. You see now I'm pretty addicted because it's such a lovely shimmer. Let me just put a little bit, and I'm hardly touching that, but it's just putting a lovely bit of shimmer on there. And I like the fact, I'm going to have to put the fan on. I like the fact that when I use the fine brush, I've got control. And I can't have the mess around the side of my pan. There you go. So just so that you can see that shimmer. I mean, them pans are going to last me they're going to last me a lifetime. I'm not going to need to buy them again, but I'm afraid I might have to buy some more colours because they are scrummy. Really luxury. But that is a luxury. You can use your gel pens. That's just me treating myself. I normally buy lots of plants at this time of year, and I thought, oh, I'll treat myself. So there you go. The brushes weren't expensive though, I must admit. Right, so I've got that touch of shimmer on there, and I've got a little touch of shimmer as well with the splatters. There's a little touch of shimmer with the splatters, which is lovely. So I'm going to move those out of the way, mainly because I'm going to splatter, so we don't want that all over the place. First of all, I want one of my stamps. I want a little bit of background stamping, so I'm going to use my miniatures, which is stamp set 756. And I like incorporating different stamps each time and using them quite a few times in different ways so that you get lots of ideas. Let's bring this card in just to stamp my excess off. So I'm going to, I'm not a great fan really of dipping my stamp into my ink because I end up squishing it in and I don't want it squished in. So I'm just adding a little bit of subtle stamping. So if you're going to go to your ink pad, you need to be very careful because you don't want to press this really hard onto that ink. You want to be careful because you just want a subtle bit of ink. And just be careful you don't dip your hands into that as well. So I'm going for subtle because it's the tree that I want to be prominent. That's why we're using second generation stamping, just so that it's not the text that's prominent, it's the tree. So I keep adding the second generation, and I do have to tell myself it's the second generation because I'm terrible. I can often forget, and then you end up putting the first generation on, and then you have to put the first generation on somewhere else as well. There we go. Beautiful. And I love showing that just how versatile stamps are, and going from something that is like an A6 background like this to creating a Christmas card. I absolutely love just changing it up a little bit. I just think it's lovely. So I'm loving this. Absolutely love it. I've got things blowing everywhere because of my poor fan. Right, so I'm going to use my Seasons stamp set, and you've got the winter text here. You could use the December text if you wish. So I'm going to use the Seasons, and let's use that winter wording. Grab a little A7 acrylic block. Let's move that out of the way. Just use that winter. I don't think we can use that spare piece of card, do you? Make sure I use that black ink. If you didn't want to use black ink, you could use some green ink as well if you wished. Add that, and let's just test. So we've got Verdant and Shady Lane. So let's just clear that of the black, just so that it doesn't affect our colours. And let's ink it with the Verdant and then the Shady Lane. And then you can decide which you prefer. And isn't it funny? I'm going to go for this one. I just think it'll look quite nice on there. We'll soon know when we cut it out. So let's cut this out. And if I'm cutting a word out like this, you often see me using my little Pergamano scissors for doing my fussy cutting, because I find that easier. When I'm doing a text or cutting out a sentiment like this, I often use a bigger pair of scissors because I find it easier. There we go. Let's just put that in there. We're just going to add the winter here, and what we can do is just bring a little bit of that colour from the background that we've used, just using the brush just to give that a little bit of ink, and then we can just add this to our project. Just add this here, like so. Doesn't the time go quick? There we go. And let's just see if there's a little bit of that shimmer left, just to add a little bit of shimmer here and there. Just see if I can, yes I can. There's a little bit of shimmer on my letters. And because I've got that fine paintbrush, it works quite nicely. Oh yes, let me see if I can show you that. There you go, you can see some shimmer on the lettering. Just lovely. Let me just clean that. I know what I'm going to be doing later. Looking for some other colours. Right, move the winter. And then let's just add a little bit of shading just underneath with my Inktense pencil. Try not to remember to leave the lid off your adhesive, Tracy, which I do every time. Just add a little bit of shading. Just under. So then I'm going to add my Posca pen. Just turn my tree around just so I hit different areas of that. Let's just take this one out of the way so that it doesn't get in our way. And then let's just grab our little bird from Quill Ends, stamp set 908. Let's grab our little bird. I think that piece of card might be a bit small. Do you think I'm getting a bit short on spare pieces of card on my desk? Don't use the grey ink. Make sure that you use the black ink, just so that we can get the bird. He just fits nicely. The bird does, just in quite a few makes. So it works quite nicely. And of course I'm going to add a little bit of shimmer to that. Let's just, we'll leave a little bit of a white border. The only problem is when you take the photograph, you're not going to see the shimmer like you can in a video. So there's always an advantage to doing a video, because you can just move your card so that you can see the shimmer. And you know that whoever you're giving the project to, that they will see the shimmer as well. Right, let me just grab a little. Let's bring the pan in here, which is probably not wet enough now, but we'll see. Because I've got the fan on, obviously it's starting to dry now. Just see if I've got a little bit of shimmer on there. Let me see if I can tilt that for you, just so you can see the shimmer. Just wash that brush again, because the new brushes, and I am trying to be good, which is not the usual case. Let's add our little bird. Now just have a little play around where you want your bird. So you can go on our pot, you can go on the wording. It's entirely up to you where you want to place your little bird. Let me just clear the nozzle of my pin flare. You can see I've got shimmer on my fingers now. So I'm going to add this just to my pot and tree. There we go. Just make that so that works okay. And let's see if we can lift this up just so that you can see the shimmer. You're never going to see that in a photograph, but you can, now I'm doing the video, you can see the shimmer in there, which is just lovely. Now, I don't want to add this to, you could add it to like metallic card if you wish. I just love to add it to an open white card because I just love sort of the starkness of it because it's fresh. I just love that. I love the freshness of it. So we'll just add that to our 7x7" card. And now I've got another seasonal make. For family. So let's just add that to there. You can really, in real life, you can really see the shimmer. You can really see it. A little bit. Don't forget to press in the middle of your card. Unlike me, it's not dry, but make sure you press in the middle of your card. Let's just clean those hands. And this was me just coming away from the TV and creating something nice and simple. But now I've got a lovely seasonal make that I enjoyed creating, that isn't too over the top, but with that touch of shimmer, it just looks lovely. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Love to all. Bye for now.